Well, it is now time for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Al is off this week, but he did leave us with some details to be mindful of concerning the most recent La Niña forecast that was released.
Thank you, Bryce. The reason that we're not doing the regular forecast this week is that I'm up in Michigan again doing my annual pilgrimage to the orchard, see how bad I can beat my body up before I come back to Lincoln. We'll do the regular forecast next week, but I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to give you an update on the expected La Niña type forecast that was put out by CPC during the middle of this month. First and foremost, let's take a conditional look at the equatorial Pacific. Sea surface temperatures highlighted with below normal conditions in blue, with the most intense of that coming up at the surface in the eastern equatorial Pacific. This is a response basically to some warming coming initially into the eastern equatorial Pacific that started this onslaught of storm system on the west coast, and then we've seen that pulse of cold water that is now moving up, and really that kind of coincided with when we've seen a lot of these cold, very cold temperatures set up this last month across much of the northern plains. But if you look to the west, underneath the equatorial Pacific, we're starting to rebuild that warm pool, and it's starting to make its way into the central equatorial Pacific, and most likely will be the next surge will come in as we go through the month of May. Whether or not we go forward in time with this La Niña event really depends on which models you look at. And if we look at the global consensus of the models, look at the averages, they all basically move across the ½ degree Celsius below normal line, which is basically the delineation for La Niña and neutral conditions. However, the two models that are persistently cool and what are basing on CPC's forecast is the NCEP model and the NASA model, and they are way out of sync with the other models. So either they're going to be really geniuses in terms of the forecast, or they're going to be out to lunch compared to the consensus of the models. That is very important because in the latest drought monitor outlook going forward in time, and this is basically the seasonal forecast, showing an expansion of dryness all the way through Iowa, southern Minnesota, eastern South Dakota, eastern Kansas, and northwestern Missouri. Now remember, this was based on the release of the seasonal forecast on the 17th. If we look at those, basically it was indicating above normal temperatures across most of the southern portions of the Rockies with the most intense chance, but most of Nebraska has generated basically a moderate to a high level confidence of above normal temperatures based on the CPC outlook. And this trend continues all the way through the July through September forecast before we start to see it slide back toward the west and southwest. In terms of precipitation, of course, the most recent forecast of the 17th, based on below normal moisture, centered over the Texas Panhandle, southwestern Kansas, moving all the way up into southwestern Nebraska, and they expanded that all the way into western Iowa, and then the very slight chance into eastern Iowa with the above normal precipitation well off to our east. In terms of the forecast going forward from CPC, indicating that this trend will continue and expand through the entire central plains and northern plains as we go through the heart of the summer, and then we don't see it start to return back to equal chances of above normal, normal, below normal until we get into that August through October period. So if the consensus models are more right, we won't probably see as grave of a situation in regards to the below normal precipitation, but of course we're going to continue to need to see periodic, very significant precipitation events through this month of May and into early June. Otherwise, we are just not going to have enough subsoil moisture to carry us through the season, particularly in the dryland environment and for our ranching community.